Hey everybody, it's Matt from the house, and in this video we're going to talk to you a little bit about wakeboard ropes and handles and why they're so important. Let's check these things out. Okay, so you got yourself a new wakeboard set up and you're ready to get out behind the boat, and maybe you got a water ski line in your boat, but you probably want to check out a wakeboard rope. There's definitely big difference between wakeboard ropes and water ski ropes. You know, when you're out wakeboarding, you're actually standing different than you do on skis. How you carve back and forth actually is, it is different, and it definitely makes a big difference as to, you know, your rope and your handle and how it performs. So right off the bat, when you look at wakeboard ropes, there's a wide range of prices in wakeboard ropes. And a good rule of thumb is if you spend more, you get more. It's definitely worth it. So I always tell people, like, you don't have to spend a ton of money on your wakeboard rope, but if you've got the money to spend, do it, because it's a fantastic thing. I mean, this is what you're, other than your boots, this is what you're touching all day long. Your feet are touching your boots, and you need your boots to be nice and comfortable, but also you're holding on to this rope all day long while you're out riding, so you need it to be comfortable as well. And again, when you do spend more, you get higher end ropes, but you also get higher end handles and grips and things as well. So right off the bat, the handle. You'll notice that a wakeboard handle is much wider than a standard water ski handle. When you're out water skiing, you're usually, especially when you're slalom skiing, you've got one foot in front of the other, and you're standing very linear. So basically you're standing and you're kind of back and forth, and you basically want a little bit narrower handle. You're kind of keeping your arms in. You don't want your hands real far apart. You want to keep your body all together. So when you're actually carving back and forth, you can get yourself back, especially when you're coming across the wake at really high speeds. You want to keep your body all nice and compact. Wakeboarding, however, you're standing sideways, and when you're standing sideways on that board, it's all about a little bit more stability, because your feet are out wider, so you want your hands out a little bit wider too. And that's why wakeboard ropes tend to be a little bit wider, is they give you, one, a little wider grip, and it helps move your arms out a little bit, and it helps open up your body and give you a little bit more stability. Also, these wider handles, when you're doing handle pass tricks, it basically gives you more to grab a hold of. You know, when you're starting to learn to do, you know, spins, 360s, you know, anything beyond a 360, obviously too. If you're not wrapping the rope up, you're actually going to need to pass the rope behind your back, even doing some of those surface tricks too. So it just gives you a little bit more to hold on to. Another big thing on the wakeboard ropes and handles is obviously we want to have a good rope in general. And the big thing about a wakeboard rope is that it's low to non-stretch. Why this is important is everything you do on your wakeboard actually relies on your rope. Not just to pull you and keep you behind the boat, but when you're in the air doing tricks and stuff, and even when you're coming off the wake, when you carve at the wake on a wakeboard, and you jump, you basically want to go ahead and grab that handle, and you want to give yourself a good pull. You gradually build up speed, and then as you come off the wake, you kind of pop off the wake, stand tall. Then once you get into the air, you can start spinning and doing that kind of, you know, flipping, spinning, and doing all that stuff. But when you look at it like snowboarding, you know, as you're coming off the lip of the jump, you can kind of start spinning a little early, and the board can kind of start sliding a little bit off the lip of the jump. However, when you're on a wakeboard, you're down in the water, you can't pre-spin. You can turn your upper body, but you can't really do a whole lot, you know, because the more you turn your upper body, your lower body wants to follow. It can actually release that fin, or you're actually pushing off and it can throw you funny. So when it comes to spinning on a wakeboard, it's actually all about pulling on the rope. If you kind of think about it, you take a wakeboard, you take a rope or a handle, and you attach it to something that's solid, because essentially your boat is what you're pulling against, and the boat's got way more horsepower than you've got. You need basically, if you attach that rope off and you grab it and you start pulling it, and you pull it behind your back, eventually it's going to get to the point where the rope obviously can't go anymore. So what's going to happen if you pull that to your back, it's going to spin you around. And that's how you basically spin on a wakeboard, is you get get into the air and you pull on the rope. So not only is it crucial for getting a good carve and jumping into the air, but it's also crucial for when you start doing your spinning and actually keeping you stable. If you feel off a little, you can give a little tug on the rope one way or the other. You can actually push yourself and keep yourself more stable. If your rope stretches, it's not going to do that. You're going to get, not like it's a bungee cord or anything, but those water ski ropes do have a little bit of a stretch. So when they're on water skiing, you can kind of get a little bit of a stretch and then kind of get that whip back to get you across the wake nice and fast. But again, wakeboarding, we don't want that. So the way you can tell if your rope is actually non-stretch, it's pretty easy. Obviously, if you buy a wakeboard rope, it's going to be very low stretch in general because that's what they're built for. But if you're not sure how stretchy your rope is, basically take your rope, grab it, about 2 inches, put your fingers about 2 inches apart, and then push it together. And then when you push that together and let go, if the rope snaps back, you probably got a pretty stretchy rope. The less it snaps back, as you can see in this one, when we push it together, it kind of stays, kind of bunched up until you pull it. That means that you've got less stretch in your rope. And that's what you want when you have a wakeboard rope. Because again, efficient carving at the wake to get a good jump, doing tricks, even stability in the air, all comes from that rope and relies on that rope not stretching. All right, and as you're looking at the ropes too, you'll look at some ropes that'll have, kind of that thicker braid that's, got that low stretch to it. And, handles, the rubber grips, floats and stuff. You can get in some pretty inexpensive handles. Great way to get out and get riding. As you start to spend more, we look at like this line from Proline. So this one, we're actually getting into a lighter weight handle. It has a foam grip on it. It's noticeably lighter weight. And then if you look at the rope, it's a thinner braid, and it also has a core inside of it, so when we push it together, you can see it actually bounces back far less. In fact, when you push it together, it pretty much stays together. It comes back just a little bit, but again, the less it wants to bounce back, the less stretch this rope's gonna have. So we're definitely getting into a much better rope. And if it is a lighter rope, yeah, technically you are holding that thing up all day long. So having it lighter is not a bad thing. And then when we look at this control handle, this one's a pretty cool one because we actually, not only do we have that nice foam handle, but the line itself is actually coated. So essentially it's very similar to the line in the Pro line, but they actually coat it as well. So this does a couple things. This is actually making the rope even sturdier so it stretches even less, but it's also helping the rope float a little bit because it's a plastic wrapped around the outside that wants to float. So, if you do fall and the boat's coming around, it's just a little easier to find that rope when it is floating instead of kind of dipping, just below the surface of the water. But again, when you spend more on your ropes, you're gonna get better ropes, and a lot of times that's what you're getting. In the rope, you're getting less stretch. In the handle, you're getting lighter handle materials, you're getting better materials to actually hold on to the handle with, and then also too, a lot of times you're getting some nice anti-roll systems as to where the rope actually attaches to the handle. But again, if you've got the money to spend on a little bit nicer rope and handle, definitely do it. Okay, and the last thing about wakeboard ropes compared to water ski ropes is the knots and the sections as to how it shortens up tend to be a little different too. And the overall length of the rope. Your standard water ski rope, it actually has, your certain sections, and it basically, and they'll call it like 15 off or 32 off, or they'll basically have something with off. And basically what that means is you take your standard length ski rope and it's gonna be 15 off, is gonna be 15 feet off of the total length. When it comes to a wakeboard rope, usually they're a little different lengths. Some of them can be a little bit shorter. Some of them are a little bit longer, getting out to those 70, 75 into 85 foot lengths, but usually you got a little bit shorter rope. With the shorter rope, you can actually go slower with the boat. The longer the rope, you have to go faster with the boat. But your wake can be a little more crisp when you get a little bit further back too. So it's really just finding that sweet spot that feels best to you. And then the sections on these ropes are usually going to be about 5 feet. So you could have, for instance, this Pro line we got, it's nice right on the package. It's overall, it's a 65-foot rope. And then we've got 3 5-foot takeoff sections. So we can basically shorten that rope by 5 feet just to find that nice sweet spot that feels best for you. Everybody has a different speed that they like to ride at. Everybody has different boards that they like to ride too. And then obviously your rope, depending on where you feel most comfortable on the wake, now we can shorten it by 5-foot sections, which is pretty standard on most ropes, just to help you find that perfect sweet spot on that boat. And that's something that can change from boat to boat. If you ride on your boat and you ride at 65 feet, you go over to your buddy's house and they've got a different boat, you might feel a little more comfortable at 60 feet. So that's what's nice about those ropes, is they can actually shorten and lengthen those sections by 5 feet to find that sweet spot on the wake. All right, well, thanks for checking out our video about the wakeboard ropes. And like I said, when you spend more, you do get more. And I always say, and not just to sell you a more expensive rope, but I say, if you got the extra money to spend, go for it. Spend some extra money on your rope and your handle, or one or the other. It's really, you're getting benefits from having a nicer handle, and you get benefits from having a nicer rope. So if you want to do a less expensive rope and a more expensive handle, or most of the times you're just going to buy the combo. But again, not to sell you something more expensive, but it actually does make a big, big difference in the end of the day. But if you don't have a lot of money and you're balling on a budget, go for those less expensive ones. Just make sure that it is a wakeboard rope, so you get those sections, you get that wider handle, and you get that low stretch rope too. If you got any questions beyond anything we talked about in the video here, leave us some comments down below. We're on there every single day trying to answer your questions. We obviously want to make sure that we get you into the right gear for your riding style, but we want to make sure it's going to work really, really well for you as well. Like, subscribe, definitely make sure to get that notification bell on too so you can find out when all the new videos drop. And yeah, whether you're gonna spend, 30, 40 bucks to get yourself a basic rope, or you're gonna go up and drop 2 bills and get yourself something super nice, make sure you grab yourself a wakeboard rope and get out and ride, because any day of riding is a good day of riding.